So Cindy Alvarez's last question, has she ever considered moving back to the US? Hold on. And there's a question from Steven481. Dan, throw that up on screen too. What are some things you miss from the US or dislike in the DR?
Have you ever considered moving back to the US? Yes, every other day. If I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the deal.
What's it like living in the Dominican Republic for me? But more importantly, what's it like for my wife, who is Dominican? Well, it's Ask Me Anything Friday, and I've got questions for her. Let's dive in. My name is Jamie Gruber, and I quit my high-paying job in 2021 and moved with my family to the Dominican Republic in 2022. And on this channel, I talk about the experiences of moving here, living here, real estate, and all of it in between. And today, I'm doing Ask Me Anything Friday, where I take questions from your prior questions on YouTube videos or from Instagram and answer them live with you. And I did a story for the community part of my YouTube channel and said, if I got my wife, if I convinced her to come on, what would you ask her? What questions might you have? And you came through, and I've got a bunch. So what I'm doing today is bringing in my wife, Silvia. Welcome. Yeah, you look over here.
Hi.
You got to speak up a little bit.
Hello.
There you go. That's a little more voice on the thing. She's learning. Don't judge her, everybody. All right. Stuck on you. So for this AMA Friday, I've got questions from different people on my community post on YouTube. Ready to dive in?
Let's do it.
Tell the audience a little bit about you.
My name is Silvia, and I was born here in the Dominican Republic anyway, to be specific, just right outside of Punta Cana. And I moved to the States when I was about 12 years old with my mom and my sister. And I lived in the States since, right? I'm 39. We moved here when I was 37.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent my whole life in the States. I grew up north of Boston, graduated from high school in North Massachusetts, and went to college in upstate New York. Then started working I came here for a year after I graduated college, and I taught in La Romana. Then I went back to the States because I needed to pay some bills and make some money. So I worked for Progressive Insurance, which is, am I allowed to say which company I worked for?
Yeah, I said
for Progressive Insurance, and I met Jamie there. We were working together when we met. And then he just followed me around for a very long time and convinced me to be his wife at some point.
I may have followed her around a little bit, but whatever. It worked. We've been together 15 years. So this actually parlays into the first question. I'll let you start and I can fill in blanks here. This is from @DominicanTruckers3345. It says, when are you going to give your poor gringo the Dominican papers? But really, my question is, how did you two meet? So do you want to tell us?
Yeah, we met working together for Progressive Insurance. It was my first real job was teaching here, although my mom would disagree. She wanted me to get a real job in the United States. And so when I finished a 1 year teaching here, I went back to the States, and a friend of mine was working for Progressive. And I decided to apply, and I worked for them for 8 years. And I met Jamie soon after starting at Progressive. And we developed a friendship, and then it became more than that. He followed me around a lot, and I decided to say yes. So here we are.
Wow.
But
Go ahead.
15 years later,
Yeah.
15 years later, here we are with 2 kids and living in the Dominican Republic.
Crazy when you think about it.
Yeah.
For context, I was her boss. How I roll. So she was actually moving to a different department at the time that she and I, our friendship went further. She was leaving my department. So it all worked out copacetically from an HR perspective.
We told them, actually you told them before you even started dating me.
Wow, we had an interaction. It's probably appropriate for me to keep my career at that point.
Okay, so yeah, HR apparently knew about our future date before I did.
That's right.
And when he told me that, I said, no, we're not doing this. I'm not going out with you.
I just went through this whole thing. I'm telling my boss in HR, like, hey, this
Yeah.
employee over the weekend, we saw each other in the city, we kissed, all that stuff. And he's like, yep, no, she's she was being hired by a different department. I knew she was going to be anyway, pretty much. And I'm like, cool, that's awesome. And then I went down and I told her, hey, just so you know, we're good with HR, so we can date. She's like, I don't know. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? I just did all this work. There's no you don't know. You're mine now, okay? You're coming home with me.
And so here we are.
Well, so advancing it took us 4 months to move in together.
It did. That was a long time. Kidding.
4 months to move in together. And then we got engaged like 7-8 months later.
Yeah,
And then we were married 6 months later,
I know.
right?
Yeah.
I made sure to get her off the market this quick. Before she came out of her stupor, I got her off the market. So that's how we met.
It worked out, thankfully.
It did.
Thankfully, it worked out.
All right, let me go to another one.
Or it has worked out.
Got this feeling.
All right, at Cindy Alvarez 8365 says, hi, Jamie. Jamie, some questions for your wife will be, what are some of the biggest differences she has experienced when it comes to motherhood between US and DR? Good question. I'll start with that. There's 3 more that she has, but go for it.
I was hoping you would leave this one for last because you sent them to me on my phone and I was looking, I'm like, oh, these are really good questions and they require some talking, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what are some of the biggest differences she has experienced when it comes to motherhood between US and the DR? From what I've seen is mothers here seem to be a lot more relaxed about mothering. In the United States, I feel like, at least where we lived, right, in
Suburbia.
Yeah. Everyone is trying to up one another. How many activities is your kid involved in? And the more activities and the busier your kid is, the better parent you seem to be. And to me, that is exhausting, not only as a parent, but I believe is exhausting for the kids as well. So I do see here, there's a little bit, their parents are more relaxed when it comes to the activities that their kids do. They're, for the most part, where we live, right? Our experience is different from Dominicans that live outside of this area,
Sure.
right? Like,
Or
I'm sure it's different in certain areas, right? Like,
yeah.
I'm sure in a poor neighborhood anyway, you're not having parents thinking through this stuff, right? Activities are expensive for the most part with what I'm seeing, and the school system is very lacking in public schools,
Yeah.
in poor neighborhoods. Now, where we live, we're blessed that we're able to have a very comfortable life. Most of the people around us are very educated. Most of the moms and dads are professionals. And so a lot of them, they do have their kids in activities. They're able to afford them, but they're not.
Yeah.
Every 2 seconds, a kid needs to be doing something. Here, it's more like if the kids get to play outside and have free play, which I think is very, very important, you're okay. Like, that's good. That is looked at as something good for the child. You don't have to be busy and going all the time. So I do think parents here are a little bit more relaxed in that sense. I also think that there's a lot more help as far as our ability to afford childcare. Nannies, right? Having someone at the house to take care of the kids. Now, that's something that we don't do because I stay home with the boys. I don't want to miss that. But I do have Isabel who takes care of the cooking, which helps a ton. And she takes care of cleaning the home, right? In the States, I was doing all of that. So as a stay-at-home mom, it was very difficult to, like, I had to get everything done before the kids got home, but Julian wasn't in school yet. And then the pandemic happened, so we're all at home. So I feel like I was very stressed out and I didn't have all the time that I have now to spend with the boys. Like, we can afford someone to be home, to cook and clean with much more ease. We could do it in the States, but I think it was harder to, one, find help, and two, to find someone who would do it for a reasonable price, right? We did have like teenagers that would come and babysit the boys in the evenings for a few hours, and it was pricey too,
like
right? And we were paying $15 or $20 an hour, which is what it is in the States, and it's perfectly fine. But we're able to do that with more ease here. So I think that having that, it helps mothers and parents be a little bit more at ease, right? Like, someone else is helping you with all these things. Working moms in the States, you're working 8 to 5, and then you come home and you see your kids for a few hours, and you have to get in cleaning, cooking, all the things, and it's super stressful. So without having a lot of help. So I think that that's a plus here.
I agree. On the one point, we went yesterday to the field. Our kids were playing soccer with a bunch of other kids, and we showed up with my parents. They're in town right now. And she was like, let's get out of here. We're the only adults here. Like, let them have their time. I think that's that distinction you're making between, like, the hovering in the US maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't know, like, there is a point where we do need to watch our kids, right? And know who they're with and who they're playing with. And if you think there's a concern, but in this case, they were all, if it was just me, I would have been perfectly fine sitting there and watching them play, because I do that all the time, right? Because Julian, our youngest, is very small. He's 6, just turned 6.
Yeah.
So I'm not comfortable with him going over to the field. If he falls or gets injured, he's going to want an adult to be there with him. I know the kid, that's why I usually stay. And then this time it was just too many of us, and I knew they were fine. There were bigger kids, older kids that are super responsible and who I trust.
That you talked to.
I talked to them and I said, are you okay if I leave him here with you for the time that you guys are going to be playing, and I'll come back and pick him up?
Yeah.
And they said it was perfectly fine. So I just, that's how we did it, right? And they take good care of each other too. Like all these kids, my kids do have really good friends. So I think that helps too.
Agree. Older kids too, that they're
Older
just
kids,
kind to the younger kids. Like,
Mhm.
oh, you juked me playing soccer or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. What's a
Very good.
typical day for you like here in DR? That's another question from Cindy Alvarez, 8365.
So like I said, my primary focus is the kids right now. And the first year here in the Dominican Republic, my typical day looked a lot different than it does now. Because at the beginning, we had to basically start living here, right? We had to set up bank accounts. I had to deal with getting a cedula, which I didn't have because, again, I moved out of the country when I was 12. And I didn't have a cedula. I had no need for it until I came back this time. And now I'm adulting, so now I need to be a legal resident. And my passport, I would get questioned at the bank. You were born in the Dominican, and yet you don't have a cellula, so I had to get a cellula. And
Wow.
that process was
More than questioned. Wasn't it like, how the hell did
yeah, judgy. So judgy. People here, one of the things that is also refreshing, but also very annoying, is everyone has an opinion. And it was refreshing about it is they tell you, right? In the States, people have opinions, but they don't, it's not polite, right? So I'm gonna tell you, here, they care about politeness to a certain extent, but when it comes to this, like the guy at the bank was giving me a hard time. How come you're 37, 38,
Whatever
however
it
old
was,
I was
yeah.
at the time, and here you don't have a cedula. So I decided that I was gonna get my cedula and have all the paperwork that I needed to do, and that was a process. Because apparently I did have a cedula when I worked here in La Romana a long time ago. I had no idea. I never saw my cedula. I don't remember. I always carry my passport. So I had to go through a bunch of paperwork to get my cedula, and it took days of me going and spending hours and hours, like 4 hours a day for like 5 days straight. Anyway, in line, trying to get everything done. Finally got it sorted out, so now I do have a cedula. So my typical day back then, it was spending a lot of time in government offices, trying to set things up, getting the house settled, because we did rent a house that was furnished, but we were missing a lot of things that we used as a family, right? Like sheets. Good sheets, towels, just things like that you don't think of when you already have your house and you had it done and settled for a very long time, and you're moving to a new country with just suitcases and clothes in it.
Well, and we came for 1 year.
And we came for 1
Right?
year,
The plan
right?
was a year. So it
But
was like, that's why all the stuff wasn't
Yeah,
moved.
yeah,
We left our
exactly.
house as is. Yeah.
So we were buying stuff, sheets, and every time we needed something for cooking, I had to go and buy a new pan or a new pot or a new appliance. Like they left us a pretty old blender that didn't even have a lid. So I ended up having to buy a new blender, right? Like things like that. It was the first year, and I'm telling you, it wasn't like the first few months. It was like the first year. It was a lot of time being spent trying to get settled, right? Getting things done, getting the kids in school, trying to figure out what they needed for school, getting used to the school system. And our kids went to a school that was farther away. So we would drop them off at 8 a.m. and then we would go to the gym for an hour and a half or so. Then we would come home. I would go and do all those things because the gringa does not speak español. That was a very weird accent. No habla español. Jamie no habla español.
Un
Ahora
poco.
está entendiendo un poco,
Sí,
pero
sí.
when it comes to learning, like the adult Spanish, which I had to learn, by the way, too.
That's true.
Um,
Think about that, right? Like, because you lived in the States from a kid up, so now they're bringing up terms as adults.
yeah, like a
wouldn't hear.
lease, and we had some problems at the beginning with the lease at the house.
language
like
in the lease, right,
So I had to learn the language on the lease. So a lot of time was spent learning adults how to adult in the Dominican Republic in Spanish, honestly, because all my adulting was done in English in the States. So now my typical day is we drop off the boys at school. School is much closer this time around. We drop them off at school, then we head over to the gym where we train for an hour. The gym is religion for me. And I think for you too, now it's become.
Just like watching her at the gym. That's my religion.
No. So we go to the gym, then we come home because we have a 10 o'clock meeting, and then I go grocery shopping if grocery shopping needs to be done. One thing I miss about the US is
delivery.
Having my groceries delivered. Here in Punta Cana, I haven't found.
Pedidos Ya does it.
Pedidos Ya does it, but minimal items, right? It's not a huge shopping trip. And in Santo Domingo, I know that there are supermarkets that do it. Nacional does it, La Sirena does it, a bunch of places do it in Santo Domingo. I'm hoping that it will start to be done here as well soon. Yeah. But that saves a lot of time, and here it takes forever. There is no fast lane, and even the lane where you're able to bring like minimal number of items, it takes forever to get checked out. And now I can tell who's a foreigner and who's been here for a while. Like I can tell who's a newcomer and who's been here for a while, because you can see the newcomer, they're acting like how I acted at the beginning, like in line, like let's go, come on, why is this taking so long, looking around. Now I can spot them right away because that's what they look like. Now I am the one in line, just looking at my phone, getting things done that I need to get done, making payments for school activities or whatever payments we have to do, because I also manage our home in the States. So then after the grocery shopping, come home and I do some work. I do some administrative work for one of Jamie's businesses. So I'll do that work, and then at 2 p.m. I pick up the boys, and then they're home, get them snacks, get them ready for their activities. So I take them to swimming a few days a week. I take them to soccer, and then I take them on play dates. Like right after swimming, they usually go to the park right here to play with other kids or just to play. We have a playground and all that stuff. So I just bring them over and I meet with other moms where we chit chat about whatever's going on in our lives, or we ask each other advice, which is really nice. And I find, as you're asking about moms here in the US, like the conversations are so relaxed. Like you don't have to overthink before you say something. Does that make sense? Like we say ignorant stuff sometimes.
And vulnerability.
There's more vulnerability. Yeah. And like you're in the States, I feel like you have to like make sure that what you're saying is not going to overly offend someone all the time. Like you have to be in your head. I feel like, for me anyway, because I'm always trying to say the right thing, right? So that allows for, I think, better, more open conversations between moms. So, and we can tell each other when we think like, hey, I don't agree with that, or hey, I do agree with that. And it's not taking personally. It's it's not an insult to you. It's more like, hey, this is how I see it. You see it that way. And then here's what's worked for me. Here's what hasn't worked. And then we move on. So, how does a budget?
Whoa. Let me do this. So does she budget house expenses is another question from Cindy. No,
sorry.
That's me. And then the last question is somebody else has the same question. I want you to answer, but like they're together, I think. So Cindy Alvarez's last question: has she ever considered moving back to the U.S.? Hold on. And there's a question from Steven 481. Dan, throw that up on screen too. What are some things you miss from the U.S. or dislike in the DR? He says driving in potholes. But I think those are kind of related.
Everyone dislikes that. But we lived in Michigan before coming here, and Michigan is notorious for potholes. And which I found amazingly surprising when we went to Michigan, there are a bunch of roads that are not paved in the city. Yeah. So to me, that was surprising. So potholes, no, not an issue. Have you ever considered moving back to the U.S.? Yes, every other day. If I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the deal. I love living here. I love the weather up until July, June. Now it's starting to get really hot. Yeah. I love the weather. I love our lifestyle here. But every so often when I go to the bank and I have to wait an hour or 2 hours for a teller to answer a simple question or to get like the checks cashed or to get money out or to do the transactions that I need to do, it bothers me so much. And all I think about is US banking where we used to bank in Brighton, where we used to just walk in and they're tellers and they're actually doing their jobs. Well, I guess the tellers here are doing their jobs. They look like they're doing their jobs, but I don't know if they actually are. They're just like this and they ignore you.
Oh God, it's true.
It's literally like this. You're the customer right there and yet they're like this.
I remember going to a Santo Domingo coffee, waiting 7 minutes. Remember that I told you? I timed it.
That drives me nuts. And every time I experience that, I want to go back to the U.S.
Yeah. So real quick on this, I was standing, me and my buddy walked in. I said, watch, they take forever. And this is like, the woman did not disappoint. She was doing something with receipts. We were the only two at Santo Domingo Cafe. Only two. And we're standing in the front and I pull up my phone and she was just doing her thing, not like 1 second, sir, nothing. Just doing her thing. 7 minutes I was showing him. He's just like, you're kidding me.
No.
She goes, what do you want?
Exactly. So every time I experience something like that, when I go to the bank, usually when I go to the bank is when I am like, I cannot believe this, like this. And the customers, there's a line. And then someone said la come mierderia the other day, which I thought was a great phrase. And I guess a lot of Dominicans use it, but I don't know how I missed out on that one. But the bullshitting, right? Like Dominican bullshitting. So someone comes who knows someone in the bank and they get in line before you, even though you've been waiting for like 2 hours and they just got in there. When things like that happen, I want to go home, back to the States, which I consider home, by the way, because I grew up there. It was my life, right? My whole life I lived in the States.
But then you went to the
States.
States.
And then, no, stop it.
All right.
Then I go to the beach here and I see that water and every single time I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not going anywhere. And honestly, the life that my kids get to live here.
That's shaking the camera.
Oh, sorry. I speak with my hands.
Honestly, yes.
So the life that my kids get to live here and the lifestyle that we have, honestly, makes it worth it. And if a friend of mine recently told me they've lived here for 5 years. She was born and raised in Orlando, Dominican, but she was born and raised in Orlando, Dominican American. And she tells me that what helped her like be at peace with living here full time
is
getting she said getting a Target bath. A Target bath is like going back to the States and like getting your fill of like processes that actually work, going to Target and buying all the things that you can't get here, that your products that you're used to. They have them here, but they're not the ones you're used to. Someone asked about products and stuff like that, so that's what I'm saying. So she gets all of that. She goes once every
3-4 months.
3 or 4 months because she also works for an American company. So she has to go back for work as well. So she goes back, picks up all her stuff, gets her fill of a different environment because Punta Cana, to be honest, feels like a fishbowl to me. Sometimes I get like overwhelmed, like just the same people, you're just running around in circles because Punta Cana is small. So I like to get out of here. Go to Higüey, visit my family, go to Santo Domingo, try out a new restaurant, go to Cabarete, go to Las Terrenas. That I like. But yes, so living here, I do want to go back every other day.
Then you went back. You want it real quick?
And then, yes, I went back in September. But we live in Michigan too, right? Where it's...
Well, it was more than the weather, though.
It's dark after like what? 5 p.m. But no, like it's cloudy. It was cloudy. It was September already, and it's just not like a cloud here and there. No, it's a cloud, like if you were living in a snow globe, and then the whole top of it was covered by a cloud, like a sheet. That's what Michigan is like from September. If you're lucky, October. Halloween is a hit or miss, right? Like if you're lucky from October, the end of October, all the way into May. If you're not lucky, September, all the way into April, maybe May, right? So when I went back, it was 70 degrees, 60 degrees, and I was cold. One. Two, I felt very lonely, right? Like I went to stores to shop and there's no buenas, hola, ¿qué tal? Buenos días. Or no one looks at you as you're walking down the street, hola. And they keep going. There was none of that. And to me, for the very first time, because I'd lived in that for so long, right? Yeah. And then I came here. At first being here and having that was shocking. And going back to the States, it was shocking the other way. It just felt very lonely
You said
and
cold. Yeah.
Cold, yeah, like emotionally cold. So I do love it here. And yeah, every other day I want to go home.
Yeah. So the tip we got, honestly, was like, make a trip every so often, even if it's out of wherever you are, because everything's, even when in Brighton you said you felt like you were in a bubble, right? Like you'd want to break out. It was just easier to.
It was easier to
You
break
could go
out
here or there, drive away. But
yeah, and there were so many towns
like
next to us with a lot of
Punta
things.
Cana's its thing, and then you can go to like La Romana,
Which
but it's
is an
45
hour.
Becuase is 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's just a little bit more difficult. And we have one car, so it's not like you can disappear and see you later on.
Yeah, and I am tied to the kids' schedule during the weekdays.
That's what I mean. Like, I can't go get the kids. You have to get the car back.
So before, when they were at the school a little bit longer, in the older school, I could go to Higuay, visit my family, get my fill, and then I would come home. Like I would go at least once a week to just go see my family during that time.
All right, let's get one more in, I think, maybe two. Beautiful couple family, that's you and me. Yeah. I'd ask your wife, I'm sorry, this is at user BN8QF9SB2C, who we all know. We all know and love. Good to see you, user BN8QF9SB2C. Beautiful couple family, I'd ask your wife, how does she feel about the early childhood education? I wanted to get your take on this. In the US versus the DR, given that you have small children. I had my concerns back in the day when I moved my daughter down there, but it turned out to be a great move all around for me, my wife, my daughter. Not sure how the schools are currently in DR since my daughter is all grown. We also moved near La Romana, not Punta Cana, but that was awesome. So early childhood, and if you want to talk about like children with special needs.
Yeah.
So talk about just like compare US to here, early childhood.
Okay. I don't think we have much to compare it to, honestly. If we're being 100% honest, right?
Yeah.
Sebastian started going to school.
Our
son started going to school. Kindergarten for him was COVID. Like COVID hit in March, and September he was starting virtual kindergarten because kids weren't allowed to go back to school. So his first kindergarten year was
almost all of it. Yeah.
All of it
virtual.
And it was hard. It was hard for everybody, but it was really hard, especially a kid that's never been to school, having to get used to doing school on a computer when the expectation was that we would be going into school. Then we found an alternative school that would allow them to go into the school in person.
End of kindergarten year.
End of kindergarten year. Right, and my kid has not severe actually. I shouldn't say that because their kids with truly severe allergies.
No,
right?
He's got a lot.
He has a lot of allergies, so he struggles. Intolerances where he's
not like his throat's
he has difficulty breathing because his sinuses fill up with mucus when he eats certain things or environmental factors, grass, things like that. So the idea of having him wearing a mask the whole day in school, I would rather keep him home. But he's a very social kid, and so he was starting to develop social anxieties at that point during COVID. So we decided to look for an alternative school that was allowing kids not to have to wear masks in classroom, and that was more in alignment with what we believe, right? Like a child should be able to play, there should be more playtime, more ability to explore and all the things. And that's when we found Acton Academy. And so we signed him up for that. So the school was amazing.
Yeah.
It had everything we needed. So as far as comparing it to an American public school, I feel like we don't have like that comparison, to compare it to.
Not personal.
Not personally.
But experiences of others versus what we are experiencing
and
here.
And honestly, I think that we make too much of it, school. In the States and here too, like their parents starting to put their kids who are in kindergarten in like a top-notch school. I don't know if it's just so that they hold their place or if it's because they think that the kid is going to become a genius just by going to the school. Like a kid needs to play when they're in elementary school. Like they need love, affection, they need time to explore, time to get to know themselves.
Look over here.
I can't. Oh, sorry. I thought you were showing me something over there. So they need time to explore, right? Time to explore themselves. And so we also go to a somewhat alternative school here.
More hands-on
which
learning.
is like it involves Finland's system of learning, which is child-led. It's also more hands-on. I love the Montessori school system. In the States, actually, I prefer it in the States than I do here. They tend to adhere to it more. So I think it all depends what school you're comparing it to. Here, I do like that our kids get to explore, they get to do all the things that kids get to do, especially in their school. Like they have a child psychologist that helps them out in the school that they have here, and they do in the States too. From what I learned, our school system where we were living is incredible. It's a public school, but it's a high highly rated school system. So we don't have that like comparison to like a poor, like a system that has a poor education or that doesn't take care of the kids. Like where our kid were supposed to go, they have child psychologists, they have STEM classes, they have all those things. I do miss all the free stuff that you get in the United States for kids. Like when I went to school, we used to get free after school activities, right? I don't know if those exist anymore, but they were free or they were decently priced. Like Sebastian used to go to soccer where we lived and it was decently priced. Here, it's like $70 to $80 a month. There, it was like $90 for the entire season, right? So I miss the pricing and I miss that the school had STEM was included, like extensive schooling. Like the classes were a little, you had more for what you didn't pay for, right? I guess you paid for it in taxes, but you had more stuff available at no cost. I miss that from the United States. Here, it feels like you have to pay for everything that's extra, art classes, all the things. But I know that in some districts in the United States, that's also the case where they have done without art classes and things like that. If you have kids with disabilities, or learning disabilities and special needs, I see parents here struggling with that, trying to find a good doctor that can help them, especially in Punta Cana, right? Like we have some, we have some, but they're fully booked most of the time, or the parents don't like them and they need to go to Santo Domingo or they need to go to La Romana to get help. So if you have a kid in the spectrum, autism spectrum specifically, like the help here is not as...
Here Punta Cana or here DR?
Here in Punta Cana, I can't talk about other places, right?
I've
like
heard
this
La
is
Romana,
all I know.
Santo Domingo has more resources available.
So
which
maybe
makes sense.
in a bigger city, you would have those resources. But here, I feel like it's lacking. Like that's something that hopefully will come as Punta Cana starts to grow.
All right, Ash, are we good? By the way, it's 5:53.
Yeah, just hurry up because we have to go get the kids.
At Schaefer Hart, do you plan on staying in DR indefinitely or just until your kids reach college age? And then since you were born in the DR and grew up in a developed country, can you share both what you see as some of the more hopeful and concerning developments happening here since you left till now from your perspective? And then there's another question. But so do we plan on staying, this could be quick, do we plan on staying indefinitely or until our kids reach college age?
I don't know. That's the honest answer. I don't know. I think we're playing it like just trying to see how our kids do.
Yep.
And
we've never lived anywhere for long.
We've never lived
so
in yeah,
we're never,
we've lived in Boston.
Somebody asked if I plan to stay here forever. I see myself living
forever,
here for life. Like,
I don't see that.
I
don't see me living anywhere forever.
Right.
I don't know most people. I mean, I was born here, then in Higüey, then we moved to Bani. I lived there for 2 years, and then we moved to the U.S. and then
Chelsea, Lynn,
I went to college in upstate New York and moved to Michigan, and so I don't know that I see it indefinitely. I just know for now it works for us and it works for the kids. So we will continue to assess it as time goes on.
Hopeful developments you see happening here since you left?
Oh my God, there's a ton. Even from when I came here in 2007 to work in La Romana, development, like the ease of shopping, the ease of transportation, all of that has changed significantly. The fact that we have a highway that connects so many parts of the country with so much ease now, it's something that we didn't have when I was born. When I was born here, I lived here as a child, or also when I lived here back in 2007. So I do see that the country is building up and it's making a lot of progress as far as making life a little bit more comfortable and easier for the people that live here. So I do see a great future for the Dominican Republic, honestly. If anything, my only concern living here in Punta Cana is infrastructure. Yeah. As far as roads and streets, I feel like there are too many, we have too much very growth. Few highways and too much growth. Yeah. Like a lot of development. So if anything, I think that the government could do a better job. Oh, also cleaning the roads, cleaning the streets. Here in Punta Cana, it's not an issue, mostly privately owned and privately cleaned. But when you get into Santo Domingo, as you're entering the city, you start to see where there's just garbage piling up in areas. And I just wish that there was more, not only education around it, but there were more, that it was easier for people to dump their garbage and for it to be picked up and things like that. So I think that's where the country is lacking right now. But I am hopeful that a lot of that will change.
All right, last thing he says, how long did it take to make me think that moving down here was my idea too?
I wish I could say that it was my idea to convince him. But I honestly, well, I guess I did start to plant the seed when during COVID, he got me a trip to Florida for 2 nights. And I turned, where it was for 2.
Oh, you turned it.
And so I turned it into a 3-night trip. And it was amazing just being by the water, and that the culture's a little bit warmer there too, where we were, North Miami. So we took a leap and we went for 3 months. You were working virtually anyways, you still had your job, but I think doing that, we went for 1 month, sorry, 1 month.
Yeah.
And so we went, and it just feels so easy, and we felt so at peace being by the ocean, and we said we wanted to do that more often. Remember, we wanted to be able to take off in the wintertime for like a month or so, and the school that our kid went to, Acton Academy, allowed for that. Living abroad, doing traveling is part of their learning experience as well. Which is why I think, like, do not be concerned about early education here. If your kid does not have a disability or anything like that, like, just bring them, let them learn the culture, let them learn the language. Those are life skills that they'll have forever. Learning the ABCs and stuff like that, yes, they'll learn it and it'll come, but do not worry. Like, don't make such a big deal out of it. Your kids will learn, and they'll get such an experience. Like that person said, they had, my kid is in the background not yelling.
Last question I have is from Sigrid Dalencourt-IU4MN. What a beautiful couple. Congratulations, lots of blessings to you both. My question for your wife will be the following. Is she able to find her products that she uses on a regular basis? Hair care, makeup, clothes, etc., or does she have to order them from abroad and receive them in DR?
So you can find everything you need at Jumbo, La Sirena, some stuff at a Nacional. The mall here, Blue Mall, has a lot of stuff where you can go purchase the things that you need, and so do a lot of places in Santo Domingo. That said, I do buy everything online that I need that I can't find here, and I have it shipped to me through a courier. There are a bunch of them. We use
BM Cargo.
BM Cargo or BM Cargo, and we have all our stuff shipped to an address in Florida, and then they bring it here. The other thing is, Jamie goes back to the States regularly, so I buy a bunch of stuff from Target. I order it so that it's ready for him, and then he goes and picks them up and brings them home. He's my mule. But a lot of the things you do find, a lot of the things here, it's just that it might not be the same brand, it might not be the same quality, but honestly, you could do it. You could buy all the products that are produced here in the Dominican Republic or that are sold here from other Latin American countries, and you save a lot of money. The thing is that like you just said, right? A lot of women like their products, like what they like, and that's me. So I like what I like, and I order it through online, and then I have it shipped to my courier's address, and then the courier brings them here to their shop, and I pick it up. I think some of them have delivery, and they can bring them to your house too.
It's like 4 or 5 days, not 1 day kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
it's like 4 or 5
exactly.
days.
It takes about 4 or 5 days.
Once you get it here, it's like 150 pesos a pound that you pay at the courier, at BM Cargo or Domex or whatever.
Yeah, there's some fees and stuff. So when you are signing up for a carrier, look out for them, because we weren't aware of some of the fees. It's still a good price, which is why we still use them, and they're really good. So we still use them.
People
as
say
a
like,
result,
oh, those
but there are a lot of fees.
People say those packages will get stolen. I'm like,
No.
That's 2007 DR. Right?
Exactly.
Like,
No. Talking about things that have changed, that's one of them.
Yeah.
There are tons of couriers that will bring you. Now, never ever mail something through the
U.S. Postal Service.
Through the U.S. Postal Services and try to get it here. That's dumb. Don't do it. Okay? It will get lost in Santo Domingo. There's no public mail here. It will get lost somewhere in Santo Domingo, which happens with some documents that my mom made the mistake of mailing. She should know better. But she made the mistake of mailing it to us through USPS. And it was priority mail. All the things paid $80. And you know what ended up happening? It stayed in Santo Domingo according to what it said on the page. And then from Santo Domingo, they sent it back to her, saying that when I made a claim to ask them for my money back because the document never made it, they sent it back to my mom and said that the way that the address was written on the document was improperly written. is the same address that we've written on packages that have been sent to us directly from carriers in Boston. From my mom sent us a bunch of packages, same exact address, and they got here perfectly fine. So do not use the U.S. Postal Service to mail things outside of the U.S. Use FedEx, UPS, or the couriers. The couriers is a better option.
Final advice if someone's looking to move here?
Do it. If you're thinking about it, like, do it. Honestly, come down, take a look, visit for a week if you want first, and then go from there. I know. Well, yes, if you can do a month, definitely do a month. However, that said, you're going to continue to think about it. Because when you come for a month or for a week, you're going to be like, oh, well, but I don't like this, I don't like that. And you have a ticket back, right, to fly home. So you're going to just go back home. When things get hard, like I said, every other week, every other day, I want to go home. When that happens to you and it happens over and over again, you're going to want to go home. So if you want to move down here, any country, honestly, I lived in Italy too for like 6 months through when I was in college. But every country will have its downs and its ups. And you are not, when you leave your place of home and safety, you're not the same person, right? Like you change, you evolve, you become something different. And when you go back, you're not the same person. You will have change. So I say, do it. Don't think about it too much and figure it out when you're here, which is kind of what we did, right? We booked the Airbnb and we said, these are the schools that we kind of want to go take the kids to because we did want a safe place. And then when we got here, that's when we did the school tours, but we were already committed, right? We had a Airbnb in Capcana, and then that's when we figure out where we wanted to truly be. And we committed to this house here where we are, which we love. So I think it's just do it. Just do it. Don't overthink it. It's going to be hard at times, and your kid's going to feel like you did something terrible at times, but I think you just do it. It will be good for them in the long run.
If you have questions for the next AMA, drop it in the comments. Be sure to subscribe, of course, and if you want to learn more about moving kids here, I put a video up right here for you that you can watch. See you on the next one.